Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our latest pattern webinar covering strategies for profitable growth in FY25. Profitability is a bit of a hot topic right now for retailers that we're speaking to, and so we felt it was quite a relevant topic to cover in our latest webinar. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join us this morning. I'm sure it will be an insightful session, and I hope that you'll take away some strategic action points. Following this event, I will share a recording of the webinar as well as a copy of the presentation. So sit back, relax, listen in, and feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen should you have any questions. So moving on to introductions, so you know who you'll be hearing from today. I'm Catherine Coleman, Head of Customer Marketing here at Pattern. I've been with the business just over 5 years, and we work with our clients on CRM, email marketing, loyalty, insights, anything to do sort of with customers and loyalty and also lead the marketing function here at Pattern. I'll hand over to Bianca to introduce herself.
Thanks, Casey. I'm Bianca Robinson. I've been with the business here for 6 years and I'm Pattern's Client and Operations Director, and I also head up our social team here. Over to you, Colin or Katie.
Thanks, Bianca. Yep, my name's Katie. I'm the SEO and Analytics Department Director here at Pattern. I've been with Pattern for about 4 years and primarily focusing on SEO, analytics naturally, and definitely recently a lot of AI given the last 12 months, but I'll hand over to Colin.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, I'm Colin. I'm the Senior Performance Director at Pattern. I've been here nearly 7 years, and my role is I head up the performance marketing team, so that includes channels such as Google Ads, affiliates, and Amazon advertising.
Amazing. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for all of the work gone into today. Okay, so let's just start with who Pattern are for those who aren't familiar with our business. So Pattern is a full service e-commerce accelerator. What does that mean? It means we grow brands online across all digital channels on a global scale. So we've got 5 key pillars within our business, strategic consulting being the first one. So we work with brands to define overall online objectives and develop strategies to achieve them. E-commerce trading, so we'll build out your e-commerce strategy and we'll trade your site. Sometimes this includes interim resourcing whilst you recruit. Marketplace acceleration, so this is really where we differ from most e-commerce agencies. Pattern is a retailer itself. In fact, we're the #1 seller on Amazon globally, growing brands profitably on the platform, among other leading marketplace platforms across the globe via our buy-sell model. We're a full service digital marketing agency, so across SEM, SEO, paid and organic social, CRM and email and affiliates. And we also own our own influencer marketing platform called Current. And finally, we do end-to-end D2C management. So this is where brands will literally outsource their entire e-commerce operation to us, including distribution from our distribution center warehouse in Melbourne. And the final patent plug to tell you about who we are. So we also release some fantastic and free industry research reports. So we're certainly known for our monthly e-commerce benchmark report. If you're not receiving it today and you'd like to, there'll be some information at the end of the session on how to receive it. The other major report we release annually is our Marketplace Consumer Trends Report. So this looks at the changing consumer landscape in regards to marketplace shopping. So we can certainly send you a copy of that also if it is of interest. Let's kick off talking about the Australian retail landscape. So a survey by the ABS showed that Australia's retail was worth about $425 billion in 2023. It was roughly a $14 billion increase on the year. Food retail was the majority of this spend, and homewares was the top category purchased online. I know we've got a few fashion retailers joining the webinar today, so that industry is worth about $36 billion, and it grew ever so slightly in 2023 versus the year prior. It was about $1 billion growth. Amazon was the leading online retailer as well in the 12 months to July, followed by Kmart and eBay. Touching on the e-commerce landscape specifically, obviously a lot of you on the call today are here to think about and talk about e-commerce. So the industry is set to be worth about $60 billion in 2024. It's certainly growing faster at a faster rate than bricks and mortar, and currently sitting about 15% of total retail sales. This is set to reach about 20% in the coming years. And according to this particular Statista report, on average, a consumer spends about $3,300 per year online. I was a little bit surprised. According to my credit card statement, I am not average. I'm sure I spend more than that. Okay, so according to our own benchmark data, the report that I mentioned earlier, so FY24 year to date, so we looked at the revenue, conversion, traffic, etc., year on year. So FY24 year to date, revenue's up just 0.3%, so pretty flat, I'd say. I'm interested to know if this surprises anyone. We speak to some brands that are feeling the pinch of more considered consumer spending, but others are also reporting double-digit growth on the year. And we'll continue to monitor the stabilization of online spending. If you're receiving our report monthly, you'll certainly be in a good position to give your leaders market context on the performance trends that you're seeing. And that's certainly one of the benefits of this e-commerce monthly benchmark report. And finally, looking at the channel share. So this slide shows you the revenue from key digital channels in FY24 in the black versus last year in the blue. So you can see direct shows the biggest change. This is likely a result of less refer information coming through from sites, and that's following a reduction in cross-site tracking and users ignoring cookie banners. So there's not too many other differences. Email dropped off a little bit. I would say with the increase in direct, there's certainly some channel shifts there in terms of tracking as well. So we're talking about planning for growth. So according to a KPMG report released earlier this year, margin was the top priority among businesses for 2024. Interestingly, it was significantly higher than the 39% that stated that increasing turnover was a key priority. I think brands know that sales are going to be tough to come by. So we need to do more with what we have, be smarter with every dollar, which is really the premise of this webinar. Obviously, profitability and increasing your profitability as a business goes across the entire business. A lot of the insights you'll hear today are related specifically to e-commerce and online, but obviously this is an entire business operation to improve profitability. Retailers are certainly under immense pressure to maintain that certain level of profitability. And of course, without it, there is no business. I'm sure we have all heard and read the news and headlines about brands going into administration, mass redundancies, interest rate rises impacting consumer confidence, which of course has had a flow-on effect on overall retail performance in the market. And in tough times, we're asked the tough questions. So, do we have a plan? Do you have a plan for FY25? So often we meet with brands who are scrambling to hit their KPIs, and often we're talking about traffic, conversion, revenue, ROAS, and that's how they're KPI'd. But when we switch the focus to profit, I think every decision needs a new lens and a new focus. So this doesn't mean focusing on some areas of the funnel and not others. It's about efficiency and optimization at every stage. It's about evaluating business priorities and understanding how decisions can impact profitability positively or negatively. When we talk about consumer behavior and that purchase funnel, it's certainly changed over the years. And no longer do we really see consumers as, not that we necessarily saw them before as simple creatures, but things were a lot simpler back in the day. So before, it was a lot simpler. Now they're complex, emotional, loyal, sometimes fickle, with an ever-increasing selection of platforms and locations to research their next purchase. And we need to know what they are and be present on every one and know which is a consumer's preference. And that's what makes it all a lot more complex. Research by Google suggests that a buyer needs 7 hours of interaction across 11 touch points in 4 separate locations before they make a purchase. Obviously, this happens over a period of time, and those engagements, interactions can come from a number of different sources. But 11 touch points, it sounds expensive, but if you're doing it well, it doesn't need to be. And again, that's where we're talking about efficiencies, optimizations to make sure you're getting the most out of every touch point and every marketing dollar spent. So despite that ever-evolving customer journey, today we're going to focus on 4 key areas and strategies to optimize your marketing efforts. So Bianca's going to talk about being strategic with awareness. Katie will take you through the best ways to engage users, and Colin will touch on strategies to improve conversion. And then I'll be back to talk about retention and how to keep your customers going around that flywheel and remaining loyal. So I'll pass you over to Bianca now. Thank you.
Hi there, sorry about that. talking about awareness, I just wanted to set the scene, and I want each of you to really think about why brand awareness is important to your brand. So typically it's around building trust and credibility, generating demand to increase your market share. How do you actually go about doing this? You create a memorable brand identity by having a clear value proposition, personality, and differentiation. And in turn, this should increase recognition and ad recall. So today I'm going to talk about how you can achieve this by highlighting the top 5 focus areas. I'd really love to run a poll with our audience here today to find out how many times you've heard the term or heard the cost of living crisis being raised in regards to a pivoting strategy. So you don't need to stand here and tell me to stand here and tell you that now it's more challenging than ever for marketers to defend their strategies and their budgets. When it comes to brand awareness, it's ever more pertinent, with effectiveness harder to prove from a pure ROAS standpoint. And we all know, most of us being e-commerce retailers who are on the call here today, that ROAS is generally the holy grail when it comes to digital marketing measurement for e-commerce retailers. So this highlights the need to be razor focused when building your strategy and ensuring your approach, audiences and budgets are clearly defined. Many businesses will need to redefine what success looks like for brand awareness campaigns through relevant measurement KPIs and objectives. In today's rich and highly saturated media environment, businesses must diversify their media mix to increase their chances of being seen and ultimately achieving cut-through. Also, don't forget the importance of cultivating a tribe of loyal followers and ambassadors who love your brand by continuing to offer value beyond the product itself. Finally, an evolutionary testing plan might be the final point on this slide, but it's probably the most crucial when it comes to driving profitable growth through awareness marketing. Get the most out of each and every marketing dollar by testing, analyzing, and constantly evolving your approach. Striking the right balance between engaging existing audiences and reaching new audiences isn't as easy as it sounds. High ROAS audiences often have a smaller audience size, and this translates to a lower, often capped investment in these areas, but high profitability. For smaller brands, this audience size is even smaller due to low brand awareness in the market. So we really must branch out to consideration and awareness-based audiences to drive purchases with newer potential customers. However, the ROAS will be lower here. It's our job as marketers to educate our businesses and stakeholders that it is to be expected. It's totally normal, it's okay, and it is crucial to your long-term profitability, growth, and success. So although both are equally important, most brands tend to over-focus on the short-term sales activation and under-focus on the long-term, which is brand building. After all, it's easy to measure success through sales conversions, but it doesn't make for the most effective or profitable marketing spend in the long run. There's a huge amount of research out there backing up that the optimal split for sustainable growth is 60% of marketing spent to brand and 40% to performance marketing. But it's not a catch-all approach. The ratio changes based on brand maturity, number of products, your competitor set, as well as brand and category variables. This ratio isn't set in stone, and I recommend brands considering the evolution of this mix as your brand matures. The graph illustrates this with the weighting of activation versus brand shifting as a brand becomes more mature. So certainly when it comes to driving profitable growth, you want to make sure from a performance marketing standpoint, you're maxing out your existing demand before over-investing in awareness marketing. Robust measurement and reporting across all of your marketing channels should inform how this evolution looks for your brand. So many businesses will need to redefine what success looks like for a brand awareness campaign. As mentioned earlier, it's our job as marketers to educate and influence your business on the importance of this. Many brands will focus on last click attribution and ROAS metrics, and they'll neglect the influence of brand awareness campaigns in the customer journey. However, multi-touch attribution models recognize the impact of awareness marketing efforts in driving conversions and overall brand health. I can't stress how important this is to take a step back and consider the bigger picture. Many brands are putting all of their eggs in the ROAS basket, viewing channels in a silo and not taking into consideration both on and off platform performance. There are many different metrics that should be measured to understand the success of brand awareness campaigns, and they include brand awareness, recognition, and recall. So Google brand lift studies do a really great job of this, but it might be cost prohibitive for smaller brands. In that case, you can consider independent research surveys on a smaller scale. Purchase intent data by looking at search volume, website and store traffic, sales and engagement through web, POS, email and social data, customer feedback and sentiment through reviews, surveys, social listening and NPS scores, customer acquisition cost by your marketing platform data by the likes of Google and Meta, and then customer lifetime value through loyalty platforms or CDPs. So I'm not going to lie, it's certainly not straightforward, but we really are doing our brands a disservice by not thinking about the bigger picture here and setting up a robust brand measurement framework. So in today's heavily saturated media landscape, it's more important than ever to diversify your media mix by not relying on one awareness channel. The bonus to awareness marketing in 24 is the ability to drive profitability by making every awareness-based marketing dollar work as hard for you as possible. So you can access highly targeted audiences, and then you can measure and assess the performance of each of those. So that will allow you to constantly adapt and evolve your strategy to deliver the most cost-efficient result. Opening yourself up to other channels also minimizes the risk attached to being overly reliant on one channel. So for instance, the bans which are being discussed in the US on TikTok, tracking changes on platforms, changes to audience access, cost factors, and then also losing access to your platform account. So if you diversify your media mix, you'll have a loyal community and customer base across a range of channels and platforms. Brands can increase unique reach by hitting different users across multiple platforms where audiences will differ. Conversely, some people are across those multiple platforms. So in this case, it's a good way to increase frequency with these users. So we're also seeing on social that brands are expanding their presence from the major players to more niche social platforms such as Discord, Twitch, and Reddit to find their specific customer segment. So people across these niche platforms, they're in a different mindset to those scrolling through mainstream platforms. So it's worth taking advantage of that and testing it. So there are now more ways than ever for consumers to discover brands, as illustrated by the graph here. Word of mouth referral sits third on this list, and the importance of awareness, customer experience, and loyalty, so remaining top of mind to your customers who will become your biggest advocates in time. So with the cookieless future imminent, and newsflash, in case anyone here hasn't heard the news from last week, it's now actually delayed to 2025. But despite that, it is still more important than ever to grow by investing in your organic channels. So build strong and engaging content that goes beyond just selling a product, and that will do you service by improving your reach, nurturing your current followers, as well as attracting new ones. The more engaging your content, the broader the reach will be. So most importantly, tapping into a wider audience more profitably. So do your research and analysis to understand what your audience wants to see from your brand. So we'll cover off testing on the next slide, but getting to know your audience and what they like will help you create strong and engaging content and know what channels to invest in, while saving time and effort creating content that's not needed. And that will in turn improve productivity and profitability. So don't forget to watch your competitors as well, because that will help with content idea generation and also search terms. Implementing a strong content strategy will help build your loyal community and offer your audience more than just a product or service, and that will help you create positive brand sentiment. So in turn, that will drive followers and build a strong base of new potential customers for you to re-engage and nurture further down the line. So don't forget your customers will be your biggest brand ambassadors, but to expand into new audiences and to drive engagement, you can work with influencers and content creators to produce content that resonates with their audiences and your potential customers. So influencers not only help to improve your organic reach and engagement across social platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, but they might also have additional platforms that they can use to promote your brands and products. So channels like Substack, Like to Know, blogs, newsletters, and podcasts. Finally, we all know that creating brand assets are expensive. You can drive profitability and by reducing branded content costs by instead reinvesting that budget into creating influencer-based content. So that has the potential to improve profitability on two sides. So reducing costs and increasing reach by leveraging influencer audiences and their engaging content. So there's a range of platforms out there that are set up to help you efficiently scale your influencer or ambassador program, like the pattern-owned platform Current. Okay, the foundation of any profitable digital marketing strategy is a clearly defined testing program. By continually evolving your approach, you're stretching each and every marketing dollar as far as possible. So how do you actually go about testing content profitably? You can start by testing the same content across all of your platforms and measuring the results and refining from there. And from here, you'll learn that what content resonates with your audiences on each platform, and that will help you begin to plan your content plan. Ensure you're assessing a range of metrics to determine success. So that might include click-through rate, engagements, video completion, average watch time, and they will help you provide insight into whether or not your audience is engaging with your content beyond impressions. However, after assessing results, you might find the audience will engage with content quite differently across different channels. So for instance, they're less likely to click from a YouTube ad to leave the page in the middle of the video they're watching. And by using these small insights, it can change your approach. So instead of creating a 30-second video, you might create a 10-second one. So you can also look at metrics across platforms as well as audience metrics. So is your audience across social channels changing? For instance, TikTok is likely to skew younger, but growing in ages towards an older audience. YouTube towards males, who are more and then who's more likely to click on a display ad? So these audience insights will help you refine for future campaigns. Most importantly, don't stop testing. Digital trends and consumer habits are constantly evolving. So to remain profitable, your approach should continue to evolve too. Okay, that's me for awareness. I'll hand over to Katie now to talk about engagement.
Awesome. Thanks, Bianca. Great. On to engagement. So coming back to basics, there's generally 3 ways you can become more profitable. You can reduce your costs, increase revenue, and become more efficient. And when you're looking at user engagement, you can look at ways that can do each of these. So to start off, I wanted to highlight some research by Constellation Research. And they highlighted that there is a direct and proven correlation between a strong, engaged customer base and business profitability. They highlighted that you can increase your ability to cross-sell by 22% and upsell by 38% by having a stronger, engaged customer base. On the next slide, I'm going to go through 5 key things brands should be focusing on as part of FY25. These will be reducing friction for your users on your site, engaging and responding to your customers, experimenting with AI generation, personalizing your content for your audience, and then customizing that experience further. So if we kick off with the first point, reducing friction. So this is a screen grab from Google's UX playbooks. They have playbooks for a lot of different types of sites, but the e-commerce one generally gathers everything up as a really strong overview. And when we start working with brands who haven't focused on user experience much in the past, it's a really great foundation to look at different ways that they can sort of reduce that churn when users are on the site and looking to make a purchase. Some of these best practices might even be seen as controversial, so check out as guests. A lot of brands don't actually offer this, but studies have shown that you can lose about 35% of people in your checkout funnel if you don't have this option available. It is also slightly controversial given cookies are third-party cookies are going to be being removed. And so it's really important that you gather that first-party data, but it's still really important that you give users a choice and let them choose if they actually give that data or not with you. Another really key one that I often see brands using is that they'll have a carousel that runs through different calls to action on the homepage. What research has shown actually is that you should just have a single CTA on the homepage, as quite often if you've got products or anything you're calling out on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th carousel, it doesn't get seen and it doesn't get clicked. So yeah, Katie, stick to a clear message.
Yeah, Katie, just on that point with the guest checkout, I think back in the day, it really mattered if it was a known customer or checking out as a guest. But these days, if you've got the right platform in place, it actually doesn't matter. You're still tracking that consumer's purchase and browse history and their behavior online, even if they're not logged in. So I think it's a really key point to make sure you're not forcing them to log out as a known customer, but making sure you've got the right technology in place to capture all that insight anyway.
Yeah, really make sure you've got your tracking in place. So this slide actually goes into a bit more detail on a piece that was featured in the last one, but I really wanted to hone in on it. And it's around allowing your community to engage with you, and around making sure that you have the ability to let users leave reviews on products. I'm always surprised when I come across a site that doesn't actually allow this functionality. Quite often, you know, a lot of brands will also sell in Myer and David Jones, and in a multitude of ways, and these big guys allow reviews, and so you're losing out on the trust signals. You don't get your star ratings pulled into PMAX campaigns. You don't benefit from rich snippets in search results. And there's a plethora of research that shows reviews are really important to consumers, and it helps them make a purchase decision. So if you don't have it, quite often they might either look at a different product or they'll try find a review elsewhere. So you should make it simple for them. Also advocating for engaging with your customers where they already are. So there's a lot of social platforms out there, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, increasingly, but making sure you're creating content that's in the right format for the right platform is going to make it exponentially more efficient for you and the results for your campaigns. On the next slide, so I'm sure everyone who's attended this call has probably been asked by their leadership to look at how they can use AI to become more efficient. And generally what we've seen is an explosion in different tools and platforms that will all help you generate either text, images, and even videos. So one of the ones I wanted to highlight as part of this is there's a tool called Sora that came out in February. And it's if you give it a short text prompt, it'll create a video. And so this is an example here from Decuba. And so I really like that it's even an Australian business that's starting to experiment with this. So the play on words here is that they had the latest winter puffer jackets landing. Not every brand can potentially use humor as part of their content, but I think it's really exciting to see that these tools can make it more efficient to create these assets. Google will allow you to have AI generated assets for its PMAX and demand gen campaigns, and this all comes down to being a lot more efficient and becoming a lot quicker at being able to produce these types of assets. So really sort of test and learn to see if your brand can also benefit from these tools.
There was a client that reached out to us recently that wanted to present AI in fashion to their business. They were trying to get them to sort of think outside the box of how AI can really impact their business, make them more efficient, and move them on. So Katie and our managing director actually recently went into their business and presented to their marketing team AI in fashion, what the trends are coming up and you know, what the opportunities are. So if anyone's interested in that presentation or hearing more about that, please reach out after the session. I'm more than happy to take you through it. It was quite a fun one to pull together. There's a lot of really interesting and exciting things that AI can be doing. A lot of scary things too, I think, but certainly some interesting things for the future.
Definitely. No, it's certainly really exciting. It's a whole new ball game, and you know, businesses that are using AI are definitely going to outstrip ones that aren't. But keeping in with the efficiency piece, making sure that you're creating content and personalizing it specifically for your audience. There's a wealth of research that highlights that making sure you're creating content with specific users in mind is going to be exponentially more effective. You know, sometimes we might come across a client and if they sell shoes, they would say they're targeting anyone with a foot. But often this isn't actually the case from a price point perspective, from the style. It all plays a part in who you're actually speaking to and who you're trying to actually get to purchase your products. So we really want to emphasize that you have a really clear, defined target audience, as well as making sure that you're repurposing content. Quite often, if you've got some really high performing ads or assets that are driving really strong results, making sure that you repurpose that, whether it's part of your CRM or like with social, highlighting blog content, it's all part of that content ecosystem. And some research from Twilio actually highlighted that if a user is encountering content that isn't personalized or specific to them, they'll often actually search for alternative products, purchase from a different brand, and even leave items in shopping carts. So there's a direct correlation with making sure you've got really strong content that's personalized to a user and and them converting. One really cool story, I think, is the growth of Stanley. So everyone's heard of Stanley Cups and the growth of the last 6 months. It's definitely been quite the craze. But what's really interesting is that they've been around since 1913. And when they were originally targeting workmen and outdoors people with their Stanley Cups, and it's only in the last 10 years that they actually start to pivot and target women, athleisure and a sort of younger and a more female demographic, and it's led to them having an exponential improvement, and I think they're everywhere right now. So also just evaluating if you're targeting the right consumers is a key piece here. On the final section, I just wanted to highlight some potentially blue sky opportunities. So ultimately, we're looking to drive profit, but you've also got to make sure that you're investing in the right tech that's going to drive a difference to your bottom line. So there's a whole host of tools and platforms out there, and they can help differentiate you from your competitors. So a lot of these types of tools can kind of be grouped into 3 different areas where it's ultimately helping a user decide which product. There's a lot of quizzes out there. Making sure you've got an in-depth site structure to actually target with keywords and content and categories for the different types of products people are searching for, making sure you've got informative blog content, including videos and product pages. And quite often what we see in beauty brands is that they'll have before and afters of before they use the product and afterwards. Completely look, and people also I really like Temple & Webster's ability to collate and upsell related products. And I've also just got a screen grab here from Go-To Skincare. They've got some really fantastic product pages that include videos that have a sort of TikTok style just under the add to cart there. So having a look and seeing what extra features are going to be beneficial for your brand. But now I'll hand over to Colin.
Thanks, Katie. And now I'm going to take you through some conversion. So what is a conversion? It's the ultimate action you want your customer to take. Obviously, generally in e-commerce, it's a transaction to drive revenue, but it can also mean acquiring data to build your email database, getting a review, or even downloading a PDF. Typical sources of conversion activity tend to be things like SEM or paid search, affiliates, bottom of funnel paid social, and CRM. How to improve conversion? There's a lot you can do. Obviously, increasing spend across paid digital channels is one of the quickest and easiest levers to pull, but it's really important not to forget things like improving conversion rate on site, driving more traffic through own channels such as SEO and CRM. So I'll take you through some key focus areas. The first thing is around reviewing what isn't currently profitable, which can vary depending on the channel that you're looking at, and then to set some goals. Thinking long-term as well, ensuring your brand is future-proofed and concentrating on owned media, such as the SEO and your social audiences. Setting yourself up for success, so following best practice across the various channels, including on-site optimization. And also one of the things that can be really hard when you've got lots of conflicting priorities and deadlines is staying on track and reviewing your initial goals on a regular basis, maybe quarterly, and while remaining agile. So sometimes those goals may need updating. And then throughout the presentation, we've talked around that test and learn. And for conversion, it's still really important to make sure you're doing that. It's essentially the only way to grow sustainably, to work out what works and what doesn't work. So what impacts profitability? There's a few points on this slide which I'll run through. So firstly, on the omni-channel. So a lot of people on this call may well be working for retailers that have stores as well as e-commerce. Most of our brands do find the customers that shop in-store and online are the most profitable, but you can use your CRM platform and membership database just to see which of your customers are the most profitable. Promotions. This is one of the key areas where it will eat into profits essentially. A lot of brands are sometimes reliant on heavy, deep promotions, site-wide percentage discounts. We've got Click Frenzy coming up next week, and that's obviously a really key period to drive performance and revenue. And I think it's still really important to understand that you can still surprise and delight customers with maybe smaller promotions, things like category-led promotions or other tactics such as member-only offers. It's a quick win, and it can be hard to wean customers off expecting promotions. Customers know when events are coming up. So it can mean revenue may fall initially, but ultimately it will be more profitable. In terms of marketing as well, it's important to work out what is and isn't profitable. Some large brands now need to look at things like media mix modeling, and that's using a platform or tool such as Northbeam, and that will help you decipher how effective the dollars that you are spending are. Also diving into the data, which Catherine will refer to later in the retention section, but looking at which customer segments are the most profitable. If you're not already, definitely start modeling customer lifetime value. And finally, also, it's not just about the marketing. You need to ensure you're optimizing your website, A/B testing, tools like Optimizely. If you increase your conversion rate for all channels by doing this, you actually don't need to spend any more on marketing. You'll be driving more success through that. Again, this is coming from the person with a performance marketing background, so it's slightly conflicting in my head. However, a lot of brands think that just investing in paid search channels will drive more revenue, which it often does. But again, paid channels are getting more expensive. CPCs are going up, CPMs are going up. And this means that that activity may become less profitable, especially if you're also combining that with a lot of promotions. So it's important to make sure you are investing in channels such as SEO, CRM, building your database, and also building your organic social audience. And this will make sure that you, over time, can potentially avoid being reliant on paid channels. Don't run before you can walk. Obviously, revenue and conversions are needed right now, and we completely understand that. Firstly, you need to make sure that your Google Analytics 4 is set up correctly. We all know the transition in 2023 was particularly painful for the vast majority of brands, but if you're not measuring things accurately, you can't actually judge success and work out what is profitable and what isn't. There's also other key best practices from setting up your paid search according to Google best practice, your meta ads according to best practice, and things like your product feeds. You will not drive success through campaign types such as Google Shopping unless your product feed is meeting best practice. This takes time, and sometimes it might not seem important, but if you're not following best practice, you will quickly become unprofitable in certain channels. And obviously, you need to always make sure that your measurement is accurate.
Cole, it's GA4, obviously, as you say, it was a bit of a painful transition. I think it continues to be painful for a lot of brands. But we've met with a lot of brands recently who wanted to join our e-commerce benchmark report. And part of the criteria there is to obviously have a well set up GA4 implementation so we can make sure channel tracking is accurate and doesn't skew our data in the wrong way. It's been really interesting to see that a lot of brands have had challenges setting it up, and consumer behavior is not being tracked accurately through the channels. So it's certainly a very good one to double check. If you'd like us to take a look, more than happy to do that as well. Katie is our resident GA4 whiz and has done a lot of implementations, but certainly can give some pointers if anything is not sitting in the right buckets in order to track your performance correctly.
Absolutely. And JPod does have some actual advantages and great features that you can use as well. So if you actually want to know what more you can get out of it, then we can also help with that as well. One of the other key areas is to consider is just trying to stay focused on the goal. So if your main goal is profitability, and half of retailers who responded to the survey that was referenced at the start of the presentation are concentrating on margins and profitability. Every brand has targets. However, constantly moving budgets and resources around for kind of those short-term wins will lead to unsustainable and unprofitable growth over time. We always recommend ring-fencing a certain percentage of your budget for conversion activity, but also for that top-of-funnel awareness activity that Bianca discussed earlier, and also that mid-funnel engagement activity, which Katie discussed. And this pie chart just shows a suggested budget split by funnel phase for a mature brand. And you can see around half the spend is on conversion, but it's definitely important to make sure you are covering all stages of the funnel and making sure you are driving those multiple touch points that Catherine referenced earlier. Test and learn. So test and learn. This screenshot is actually from a digital marketing test and learn plan, but it's much more than that. I've mentioned website optimization. I've mentioned things around CRM as well, and that's really important, right down to the nitty-gritty of testing emails, when you send them, who you send them to, all that kind of thing. And testing plans can be a lot of different Excel spreadsheets or Google Docs, but it's really important to make sure you have these and you try and stick to them as much as possible, get the results, analyze them, and then you'll quickly learn how you can become more profitable alongside driving more revenue. If you don't have a quarterly digital marketing test and learn plan or an e-commerce test and learn plan, we recommend you create one. We can definitely also help you with that. So feel free to reach out after this presentation if you just need some support. That's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Catherine to cover the retention stage.
Thank you, Cole. So look, final section is around retention. So clearly, the longer you retain a customer, the more profitable and valuable your acquisition efforts were to acquire them in the first place. Certainly, if you're spending money to acquire new customers, you don't want to lose them straight away. You want them long term. There's a number of stats out there around the cost of acquisition being 5 times what it is to retain a customer. So certainly, if you're focused on profitability, then you need to focus on retention. So a Harvard study showed that an increase in customer retention rates by even just 5% can increase profits by 25 to 95%. It's a pretty wide range there, 25 to 95%, but certainly it shows that even just a small percentage of improved customer retention can certainly make a hugely positive impact on your company's ROI. So some metrics to think about. How do you actually know if you're doing a good job of retention? There are hundreds of metrics you could be monitoring, but here's a few to keep an eye on. Firstly, without being able to attach a transaction to a customer, it makes it nearly impossible to have an accurate view of customer behavior, their loyalty, their profitability. The majority of this challenge certainly will come from stores because obviously online it's a lot easier to track all of that behavior. In stores, it's just not a behavior that a lot of retailers were carrying on from early on in the day. So certainly this can require a lot of training, customer incentives, brands that have got a loyalty program or e-receipts or things like that. It gives them a reason to share up their data while they're in store. But if you don't have that, you may have a very low track transaction rate. Brands I've worked in the past, some might have a 50% track transaction rate in stores, even up to sort of 80, 90% if there's an incentive for a customer to identify themselves every time. And certainly if the store staff members are trained, sometimes incentivized, but trained at least to be asking customers for their details. Certainly that goes to the technology and the platforms they have in store. It's really important as well. If it's not simple for the staff member, they're not going to do it. Now, of course, a sign of retention is repeat purchase rates. So this one's a given, but also looking at the time between purchases is really important. So many platforms will enable you to trigger communications based on an average buying cycle. So if that has lapsed without a purchase, then you can trigger communications. And we'll talk about communications in a later section here. So database health and churn, most certainly if you're putting a lot of effort into acquiring customers, it requires a lot of ongoing nurturing and monitoring. So if you are churning out customers, again, it kind of flows on to the next point. You need to understand why you're churning. So NPS and CSAT certainly a good couple of reference points to understand how you're performing. But without good scores, customers will not return. And this is a really good metric to sort of see how you're going over time. We'll talk a bit more about that. And then finally, customer lifetime value. Cole mentioned it earlier. It's certainly a hot topic of the moment, and brands want to know more about what their customers are worth. And it's interesting, but it's even more interesting when you analyze your customer base on their profit scores. So this isn't something I think that a lot of brands talk about, but it's certainly important. We look at your loyal customers or your high frequent purchasing customers, etc., through the whole sort of loyalty funnel. But how many of you have actually built segments based on high profit customers? The customers that have purchased 10 times with you in the last 12 months, you might think they're a really good customer. So they're sitting in your loyal segment. They may have spent $5,000 with you. That's great. But did they buy on sale? Did they buy a whole heap of discount product? Are they your low profit customers? So certainly when you are rewarding and segmenting customers, you really do need to know which are your high profit and high valuable customers and which are the lower profit. We need those low profit customers, certainly to clear stock. Everyone has a place, but certainly you want to make sure you're protecting those that are high margin. The sections here, so what should we be focusing on? So I'll take you through a few here. So obviously end-to-end experience, engagement flows, making sure we're keeping people going through that flywheel, omni-channel customer view, so making sure you've got a full view across all behaviors of a customer, cross-channel customer experience, and of course that research piece, which we spoke about. Okay, so end-to-end experience. So where does a customer start, an engagement with a customer? Where does it start and where does it end? Some of it we can track and some of it happens without our knowledge, but all touch points will impact a customer's perception of your brand positively or negatively, and this will determine whether or not they're going to buy from you again, and ultimately how profitable they'll be for your brand, as well as how profitable your marketing efforts are. So a report came out from Dimension Data, found that 92% of companies who focus on customer experience saw an increase in customer loyalty, and 84% saw an uplift in their revenue numbers as a result. One of the reports that I showed, graphs that I showed earlier on in the presentation, where it spoke about profit being the number one, customer experience was right down the bottom. So brands investing in customer experience, surprisingly further down. And I think that it is a point, and we've all mentioned throughout here, if you want to be efficient and profitable, you need to have the best customer experience to make an easy journey and make people come back. And that's certainly very important when it comes to retention. So look, at a really simple level, customer retention is everyone's problem. It's not your CRM department's problem. And these metrics should be surfaced across all departments to understand how consumers are behaving. So engagement flows, when we talk about retention, obviously we want that second, third, fourth transaction. And the way to do that obviously is by frequent, relevant contacts with your database. Understanding that that first 30 days is really important when a customer first engages with your brand. So thinking about the touch points that you have got on these customers, having a look at how they're engaging with your site in their first 30 days, that can help to start profiling them, understanding, are they spending a lot of time browsing sale or low price point products, or are they spending time on more expensive products, on exclusive products, on limited range products? You can start to really profile them and make sure that you are keeping them in those segments and speaking to them in that way in the first 30 days at least. Communications go across all types. So SMS, email, in-store, most CDP platforms will enable cross-channel communications to capture customers at the right time. The omni-channel customer view. So there are so many different ways, and I said earlier about that customers can engage with our brands these days, and brands are often looking to get more channels to drive awareness and put their products into. But we don't always have access to all of that data, and that makes it really challenging sometimes to understand how we're performing. So brands that are focused on the 15% that they can see, which is the online, are not getting the full picture. So certainly single customer view, it's a whole nother conversation, but a really high level. Without access to that level of data, you can't make informed decisions. That cross-channel experience, if a customer is going on social, they're shopping online, they're going in store, as much of those insights as possible need to be coming into a platform so you can continue to personalize experiences. This example here, obviously online, we've identified, this is an example I found online, this isn't ours, but if you've identified that you've got a group of customers who do look at sale product or are looking for discount or searching on your site for discounted holidays, for example, they've personalized a homepage with holiday deals and really speaking to that audience, versus if you've identified that someone is browsing things to do with families and children, again, you can personalize that experience. Often this personalization, it's simple to do on email, and a lot of the time that is the channel we're doing it. Obviously through paid social and things like that as well, you can be very targeted, but don't forget about that whole end-to-end experience. Likewise, if someone comes into store, being able to surface what is in that customer's wish list or their cart to the retail team will help optimize that in-store experience and again, obtain that conversion. And finally, that customer research and feedback phase. So NPS is a really clear indicator of brand engagement and loyalty. Understanding what specifically impacts NPS is the key though. It's very good to have a score, but the why behind that score is how you actually make an impact and change it. So there's so many different places obviously to gather that feedback. There's NPS and CSAT, very important ones, but also post-purchase feedback. How was the experience online today? If you're understanding that the end-to-end experience for a customer was not positive, how are you going to get them back? And this is where I say retention is not an e-com team or CRM team's problem. It's the whole entire end-to-end business. If the product quality wasn't great, then part of that NPS weighting needs to go back to to the buying team and the QC team. So the way we've done this in the past is once you've asked that NPS question, then you break it down. So you've got your overall, how likely are you to recommend this brand to friends or family, and then you can ask some follow-up questions. So if you think about the key departments in your business that are impacting consumer behavior and what maybe made that score, get a score for the product quality experience, get a score for the online purchase experience, get a score for customer service experience if they engage with them, get a score for how long it took them to receive the package, how the package was displayed. I know we don't want to ask a million questions, but by doing that, you'll get a metric that goes to the owner of each of those departments. They are then individually KPI'd on a score that ultimately feeds into whether a customer will buy again. So that's why that's really important to make sure that you are getting feedback across all channels. We've got about 5 minutes left. So I'll quickly touch on the priorities that we spoke about. There was a lot of, ideas and things to do across this session. So some of it you can do now, some of it you can do later. This slide just really talks to the key priorities of things that you need to do right now if you can, and certainly testing and learning. Again, you're going to be more profitable and more efficient if you understand what works, and that's certainly a very big focus area. AI, there are so many new products coming out now. As I said, we're happy to take you through. This is a fashion in AI, but I think that for those brands that are not fashion background, there's certainly some interesting insights there. So more than happy to take anyone through it that's interesting. It's quite cool. Testing and learning, obviously really important, and understanding who your profitable members are from a customer database perspective and the behaviors of those customers, how to nurture them and keep them profitable. I will open the floor if there's any questions for anyone, but whilst we're waiting for any questions to come through, I'm just going to pop onto this slide here, which just talks about some final resources for you. So the first one there, we mentioned the e-commerce benchmark report that we released. So if you scan that QR code there, if you're not receiving at the moment and you would like to receive the latest copy, and also if you'd like to become a contributor of the report, so you can fill in your details there, we'll get in contact. It's complimentary, it's very simple, and you'll start to receive Australian e-commerce industry benchmarks every single month. Digital health check, that's the next one there. So if you would like us to have a review of your digital channels, we do it all the time for brands, just to give you some high level pointers on the best way to optimize your marketing efforts to become more profitable or to grow your business. Certainly as we're planning FY25 and wanting to know where the focus area should be and how you can move your efforts on for next year. Colin had a quote earlier on in his slides about the definition of, what was it? Repeating things over and over again is a definition of insanity or something like that. Certainly you want to make sure you're making changes. And finally, for those of you who have joined us that are in Melbourne, we are hosting a Melbourne event later this month. So on the 30th, if you would like to come along, it's a CRM masterclass hosted by myself and 2 others of our CRM team, as well as some of our clients that'll be talking through their experiences around driving meaningful customer relationships. So that is set to be a great event if you would like to come along. But that is all. I'm going to give you 2 minutes back. Thank you very much for joining us today. Panel, thank you very much for your time. Bianca, Colin, Katie, that is it. Thank you so much. Good luck planning out your strategies. If you need any help, please feel free to get in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Casey.